live version of the Juice Box Heroes podcast. I'm one of your hosts, PK. We got the Dubon Fan Club President Moreno with us, and Bryles. How you doing, fellas? Everything going good? Bryles?
Doing good, buddy. I hope everybody out there had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I know we did that short little podcast right there on Black Friday, but hey, now we're live back on our regularly scheduled time. So hope everybody had a good one. And Chris, how you doing, man?
Man, doing good. Finally got the truck up and running. That was a fiasco. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, and not in a good way. But yeah, I mean, just that. I mean, outside of that, just eyes glued to Twitter, waiting for the Astros to do something. I feel like I'm that meme with the guy with the stick. You know, he's sticking the Astros logos. Like, come on, do something. I mean, I get it. They're waiting on Bregman. I mean, but like, man, I just don't. I'm not a big fan of waiting for that one guy. You know, like I think you have to say, all right, you've got this amount of time, and if not, we're moving on. But we'll get into that. PK, what's going on, man?
Man, it's the exact same. You know, we had a little bit of news on Bregman, this week, and so again, like we're sitting and waiting on that, and then, there's so much crap on Twitter. That's the main thing I go with to get excuse me all my information. And there's so many posts, and X, Y, and Z teams are looking at this guy, and Soto's over here doing this thing, and the Astros are talking to this guy, and there's so much information about who's looking at who that it's really hard to kind of know what end is up, right? Just before the show, Chris, you were telling us about a buddy of yours who sent you a text saying that Tucker was on the trade block, right? And so I'm looking through Twitter and I'm like, yeah, I'm not seeing that anywhere, which doesn't mean anything that I can't find it. I'm just saying that I didn't see it. So there's so many things going around. We're getting close to the winter meetings start. They start on Monday. So man, it's going to get a little interesting here, man. Like dominoes are going to start to fall quick, and I'm curious to see what Bregman's going to do. With that offer. Just to kind of recap on it, was a 6 years, 156, which I think the 6-year deal would be the longest for the Astros and their franchise to offer. I just think 156 is probably too low for him. I think he's probably looking. We both all three of us have read the stuff on Twitter, right, and the reports on any outlet that we use. He's looking in the range of 200 million. Not saying he's going to get that, but somebody would probably pay for it. Could pay for it. I mean, at least it seems like the Astros are trying to make it looks like they're actually trying to make an effort to sign this guy. So we'll see what he does. I mean, I'm like with you, Chris. I don't like sitting and waiting for one guy, because when you do that and he goes the other way, now you're scrambling and probably overpaying for other guys, because now you need that whole fix. So it's going to be interesting to see the next 4 days, next week, the next week. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we get to talk about tonight. A lot of little scenarios, and so I'm excited to get this episode going.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just hope. I mean, I know the last 2 years of the winter meetings have been less than, like anything that it's been a shell of what it used to be. So I'm really hoping that this is the year where shit pops off. Like it's just winter meetings start. And then by like 3:00, bam, we got our first big breaking news. And, I mean, even if it's, even if it's like, even if it's like other teams, I just want to see something. It's like we saw Blake Snell sign 3, 4, 5 days ago. And then he had a small sign-in earlier today. I mean, but it's just like I want to see the Astros do something. Like whether it's, I mean, at this point, I'll even take a minor league sign-in. Like I just want to see them do something. Right. Just
so are you saying that the Taylor Trammell signing was not enough for you? That wasn't enough for you?
It wasn't. Okay. It wasn't.
Okay.
I mean, it got me going for about 3/4 of a second. Then I moved on with my life.
Okay. All right.
That is still the most exciting news of the
of the all. Not really. No, they signed that left-handed pitcher from Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
That guy.
That guy.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us his name?
I think it's Stephen Okert. I think he used to pitch.
Okert, there we go.
Yeah, I think he used to pitch with Miami too back in the day.
Yes. He did.
Well, we'll see, man. We let's talk about the division for a little bit. Let's talk about that team that is Vegas now, formerly known as Oakland. Like
it's not Vegas yet. We'll be in Vegas.
Well,
for
they're
3
in
years.
they're in Sacramento. I don't even know where they're at right now.
No, they're
California.
not in
I don't
Sacramento.
think they know where they are.
Yeah, they're just known as the Athletics baseball team.
Cool. Well, let's talk about the Athletics baseball team.
So they're the Washington football team of the MLB.
of the West Coast. West
Yeah.
Coast A's. It's we call West Coast A's.
Yeah.
But anyways, they're making. What do you
They
think
made a
about it?
splash.
They're making a few moves. It's like all of a sudden they're trying to spend money. So let's back up. So Luis Severino, 3 years, $67 million today. Who else just went over? Travis Darno. Didn't he go over there?
Yep.
I think so, yeah.
So I mean, look, we're not saying these are massive splashes. The Severino thing was, I didn't really see that one coming.
Yeah.
But look, man, the A's have some young talent. They've got some mashers. They got Mason Miller's with them, right? He's one of the like stud reliever.
Yeah, he only throws like 106 or like 104
I
or
mean,
something stupid like that.
So it's just interesting to see these a team a Moneyball team that doesn't typically go out and spend, but here they are spending a little bit, right? So it's gonna be interesting to see. The Mariners, the Mariners keep popping up on these, potential landing spots for some players. I had it earlier, and of course my page refreshed. That's not really the point. But the point is that the Mariners, I've seen some potential landing spots for some, not big name, but decent sized name, players. So
yeah,
that's what's going to get interesting. And since we're talking about the AL West, Chris, I told you, I think I put it in our group chat. I had a response to our episode from last week. We talked about Kikuchi going to the Angels, and we talked about have fun losing and everything, right? So one of the comments that we had on that episode was from a listener, and he said, "Look, I'm going to revisit this episode next season when the Angels are in first place." And so I said, "Hey, man, let's do it. Like if they're, I need to figure out what a substantial amount of time for the Angels to be in first place is, like whatever that is, so we can review it." But that was pretty cool, that we actually had someone talk about that because, look, me and Braz ate some crow last year with Kikuchi. Hope we don't have to eat any more crow this upcoming season. But the West is, on paper at least with the early moves, looks like some teams are making some moves. So I think that's why the impatience for us is like, Breggy, what are you going to do? Houston, what's plan B if you lose Breggy, right? So it'll be interesting for this next few weeks.
Yeah, and actually, to jump in, we actually got a question in the chat from Matt. He wants to know how we feel about the starting pitchers coming back from injury and their, in his opinion, underperformance before their injuries. Well, I mean, as far as underperformance before the injuries, like you look at Christian Javier, right? I mean, in the early parts of the season, the dude was dealing, right? And then he had that weird neck thing, and then he came back, kind of got lit up. Then he kind of looked like Christian Javier, and then he was out for the rest of the year. So, I mean, and then like I'm trying to think of who else. So JP France was another one. I think they already came out and said they rushed JP France back. Like he probably should have never pitched at all this past season. I mean, really, kind of like the way you have to look at the starting pitchers is, you look at from what I've read, Garcia is supposed to be ready by the beginning of spring training. I mean, Lance McCullers is always a wild card as far as is he going to be healthy?
Professional AGB actor Lance McCullers.
Yeah, so I mean, but Javier, you have to look at he's probably not going to be back until let's say August, right? And that's he's ready for a rehab assignment in August. That's not he's back on the team. And even if he is back on the team by August, you're pretty much treating August and September with Javier like it's spring training for him. So anything that you get out of Javier this up and coming season that's going to be anything positive is like what you got from Kikuchi. Anything he gives you positive is probably 10 times more than what you're expecting. You're just wanting him to get back into his original groove of throwing and stuff like that. I mean, so like I personally don't count a lot on Javier when he gets back because he's coming back from Tommy John. So he's going to be under a microscopic pitch count. So I mean, really, the only two pitchers that we really have potentially coming back that could be of use would be Garcia and Lance McCullers. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't want to hog the answer to the question.
No, I think we got reinforcements coming in July, just like you talked about. I mean, you got JP and Garcia coming back after that. So it's going to depend. I mean, we've seen what happens. Like either these guys are going to come back and be nails, or you're going to come back and be like, ooh, maybe he should have had another rehab start. You know, you just don't really know. And not only that, getting these guys stretched out and ramped up and all that. So say you're the pitcher you're looking at is coming back slated for June 15th. If he's slated for June 15th, that means he's got to get stretched out in 6 to 8 weeks. You're not even going to see him till August 1. So it's with that said, I really like the idea of what we've even talked about. I even said it. I was like, we've even got a whole starting lineup worth of dudes on the on the IL right now that are going to be coming back, and we don't know what we have. I would like to see that we get into the playoffs, and yes, I'm already assuming we're getting into the playoffs next year, but getting into the playoffs with more starting pitching than we need, like we did in 22. And you know, we've talked about this 100 times, and not just us three, but any like baseball people I talk to. It's like when you're going to the playoffs, you've got to have a healthy roster, and you damn well better have a healthy starting pitching staff. Because if you don't have a healthy starting pitching staff, your guys can go knock the ball around all the time, and they're going to look like the Texas Rangers and end up losing in the playoffs. So, anyway, that's
So
the way I feel about it.
I just kind of jotted down 6 starting pitchers. Okay. You got Hunter Brown, Eric Getty, Rennell, Fromberg, Garcia, and France, right? 6 guys. 2 of those guys, France and Garcia, of course, didn't have a full season, right? So out of those 6, you've got 2 guys, France and Garcia, are the ones that are coming back, right? Chris, like you talked about, France was rushed back. Javier, I left Javier out. Holy shit. Okay, and Javier's rushed back. We all know about that. Crazy how a neck injury turns into Tommy John, but you know that was the theme around the ball club.
He slept wrong.
Yeah, slept wrong, pinched nerve all the way down to his elbow. Cool. So let me just write that in so I don't forget. But I think Javier was freaking nails. I was at the game that Javier threw a 1-hitter against the Blue Jays the night after Rennell threw his no-hitter, right? Back in April. And the dude looks stupid good. So with the Javier thing, I'm good. I'm good with. I have no worries about him. Coming back after his injury, other than the fact that the timeline, right? I mean, like Chris, you said, it's going to be I think it's going to be a late August season. You're going to be on a slow pitch count when he comes back anyway after his rehab stints. Hopefully, there's no setbacks during that. And then France and the Garcia, you just kind of work them in throughout the year because you've got Brown, Eric Getty, Rennell, and Fromber, if Fromber's still here, right? I mean, that's a whole other thing also. So,
yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, we don't even really know if Fromber's going to be here. We're assuming he is, but you never know. So, like, the starting pitching, I personally feel comfortable with. It's just these guys that were out all of last season, like the Garcia and like JP. It's, what can they give us when they come back? And like, we shouldn't rush them back once we get them. It's just work them back in. And then because we did last season what we did the season before, where we found a Hunter Brown, right? Like we had Eric Getty, we talked about it, should have never been up at the big league level as early as he was, but he had to because of pitching injuries. Rennell made the team on the last day of camp. Look at what that guy did.
Pitch a no-hitter.
And threw a no-hitter in his first freaking start. I mean, like his first few starts, I mean, he was just mowing people down, right? So we found these. Now, with Rennell, like you're probably going to get a couple more years out of the guy. I mean, he's older, right, for baseball. But our starting pitching, I think, is pretty good going in. Just on paper, at least in what Hunter Brown and Eric Getty were able to do towards the end of the season. So, it's going to be, I think the France Garcia one, if I have any kind of concerns about the starting pitching, those are clearly the 2 that I would be concerned about. Javier, once he gets up and going and throwing and back to his normal self, I think he's just going to move fluidly right back into how he was dominating.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, like looking at like Javier, I mean, like if you're set on pitching, right, it seems like the last few seasons there's been this one guy that's come out of AAA that's kind of been like the backbone of the rotation, right? Like 2 years ago it was JP France. This past season it was Blanco. I mean, 2025 it could be Colton Gordon, and the way I see that, or the Astros could go out and go sign somebody in free agency this offseason. The way I see it is that if you're pretty legit at pitching, I even, what's the point of even bringing Javier back? Let him sit out the rest of the season, maybe do a bunch of bullpen sessions, let him get his arm a whole off season to rest, and then he can come into spring training ready to rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so like it's interesting to see what they're going to do. I mean, because like you said, I mean, they, everything is swirling around. I mean, like if you read a lot of the articles, it's right now our main mission is to either trade Fromber or trade Kyle Tucker, right? I mean, so I don't know if that's the play. I mean, it's just a matter of like if you're trying to keep this group of players together, I mean, like literally you have this season to really go out and win another World Series, because I don't see them being able to give up the cheese it's going to take to bring Tucker back. And if you're in first place come the trade deadline, you're definitely not trading Kyle Tucker. So, I mean, like you almost have to go into Dana Brown. I mean, between him and Crane and all the brain trust that's around Dana Brown, they've got to figure a lot of stuff out, probably in the next week or so, because it's either you go all in and you go for Bregman and you say, okay, we'll trade Tucker, but you're going to have to trade him before the season, because I don't see any scenario where you're 7 games in first place in the AL West and you're trading Kyle Tucker. So it's just kind of like you have to, it depends on what they do. Like, when you brought up a buddy of mine telling me about the Tucker being on the trade block. I'm like, that only makes sense if you're, if you're giving up on Bregman and all of a sudden now the Astros are a player for Juan Soto. And then you're using Tucker to get a replacement third baseman for Bregman. I mean, there's tons of, granted, you have to have, and you're competing with a bunch of other teams that have a lot better farm systems, but you have other options you could go. Like if for some reason Bregman's like, cool story, I don't want your 6-year 158. I'll go to insert team name here. They're giving me 8 years for, I don't know, 240, right? I mean, there's still that idea about going to Minnesota and saying, hey, we'll kick the tires on Correa. What is it gonna cost us for you to eat 10 million of that 33 that he makes a year? And looking, Jacob Melton's off the block. He's non-tradable. Anybody else can go. So, I mean, if you can do that, there's still Nolan Arenado you can make a trade for, right? So, I mean, it's not like doom and gloom if we don't get Bregman back, but they have to make a decision on which way they're going to pivot, So
I'm gonna drink some of that Kool-Aid you're on, because it is a lot worse if they don't sign Bregman. Because you don't know what Plan B is. You got a glaring hole at third base.
I mean,
right?
I will tell you this: if Dana Brown, now again, having a Plan B and being able to execute it are two different things.
Well, same with Plan A.
I mean, I agree, but what I'm saying is that if you went into this offseason, shit, they should have known. They should have already had these conversations by like August about Plan A. Obviously, is to re-sign Bregman.
Right.
They better have a Plan B, a Plan C, and a Plan D. Right now, granted, we don't want to get to C and D, because C and D is going to be like Jorge Polanco or
no, that's your Plan B from what I saw on everything on Twitter. I was just about to chirp in and say that. No, Jorge Polanco apparently is what Dana Brown is looking at for his Plan B. And I'm not going to lie. And Chris, I'm sorry to cut you off, man.
No, you're good, man.
Cut his ass off.
Anyway, but no, it's like everything they're saying. I saw it on Fansided, and then it was also on another article today. They were like, listen, if Jorge Polanco ends up being the third baseman for the Houston Astros in 2025, Dana Brown needs to put his house up for sale pretty quick. So he's going to be on the hot seat.
But
from everything I've heard, now listen, I'm not Jim Crane, I'm not Dana Brown, but you got to figure something. If you don't pull that off, Jorge Polanco or somebody else is your third baseman that's of that caliber, you better figure out something to make us amazing.
Okay, I was
elsewhere
gonna say,
around the field.
well, again, too, like if Dana Brown only has, if Crane says the best we can do that you can offer Bregman is 6 for 158, right? I mean, it's not like Crane goes up to Dana Brown and says, "Hey, here's a blank check, bring Bregman home." Now, if that's the case, and he decided to go cheap, then yes, I agree. I mean, but like if you were able to, so hypothetically, right, would you be upset if they did, if Jorge Polanco is our third baseman, but let's say we brought Teoscar Hernandez in to play left field, and then we still got either Christian Walker or Goldschmidt to play first base? Would that upset you?
If you do that and you sign Tucker and you spend the money for that, then sure. If you do that and at least make an offer to Fromber, sure. I mean,
Well, here's the thing,
you know
though,
what I mean?
too, is that
There's a lot of things to play with, and we don't know what their budget is.
Polanco is not a long-term solution at third base. He's essentially a bridge.
Not.
He's a bridge. So you are still going to have to make that call on Fromber or Kyle Tucker, which at this point I think is pretty. If we get to this plan B, I think it's unanimous. Fromber, I love what you did in 2022, but you're going to go play somewhere else. You're right.
Yep.
I mean, so, but if you made the team better, because I mean, let's be real. I mean, the combination of Myers and McCormick in the two outfield spots was abysmal. Abysmal. Now, granted, don't get me wrong, Myers had his awesome defensive plays, but offensively, it was hard to watch, right?
Yeah.
And as much as I love John Singleton, right? I love me some John Singleton. I've been campaigning for John Singleton all season. You can't win a World Series with John Singleton as your first baseman unless you have every other position taken care of. Now, this was the 2022 Astros, and Singleton was your first baseman, but you had everything else on lockdown. Yeah, I'm sure you could do it. If this was the 2019 Astros, the 2021 Astros, yeah, they could do it. The 2024, 2025 Astros, I don't know, man.
All right, so
Playing first base is incredibly difficult.
Yeah. I just watched that movie 2 nights ago, and I laugh every time that part when they're talking about playing first base. Like it's
wash.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. So let's go back to the Teoscar Hernandez and the Polanco thing. How long are you signing Teoscar in that hypothetical situation? How long are you signing Teoscar for?
Well, how old is he? Like 31?
Let's just say he's 31. I don't know.
I'd give him a 3-year deal.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Like I like Teoscar, dude. Like I do. I liked him when we had him years ago, and I liked him last year watching him play. I still like Kike Hernandez. Like I would love
that too.
I would love Kike to be on this team.
But I don't think Kike is a starter and everyday left fielder. He's more of a platoon guy. So, like, if you bring in Kike, then you're gonna probably have to cut Jake Myers, which would not break my heart at all.
I think
Kike is your Dubon, dude. I don't see him fitting in anywhere.
I do. If you trade Dubon, bring in Kike Hernandez, I think all would be right in the world.
There you go.
Why you hate Dubon so much, man?
I'm just saying, man. Because Kike Hernandez rakes in the playoffs. Absolutely rakes.
Yeah.
And then you could still bring up Pedro Leon, and he can platoon with Kike in center field. Boom, done.
I kind of like, man. Okay, I like the hypothetical if we lose Bregman, we bring in a Polanco player and a Teoscar for the outfield. Like you're bridging that third base for a little bit. You're band-aiding it for a little bit, but you are at the same time upgrading left field, right? Or center field, which you need. And you forget some cap, right? So in that hypothetical, I like it. Like I like it. Because I feel like, okay, let's say we do sign Breggy, right? We re-sign him. Okay. But let's say we have to re-sign him for $6 and $175. Let's say that's his bottom dollar. Okay. Like how much other moves are we going to be able to make outside of that?
What for?
Just, I mean, any upgrade to what we have. You're talking about.
So what kind of contract are we talking about for Teoscar? So 3 years. What's his annual salary?
I don't know. Let's look it up.
They were saying that he was going to go for like 3 or 4, which I thought was like super low, honestly, compared to what some of these other outfielders have been getting. So, I mean,
Yeah, but he's older too, and like, I mean,
sign for 3 and 15, and then you jump
well,
everybody else.
I think his 1-year deal with the Dodgers was 15, so you'd have to go
No,
higher.
It couldn't have been that much.
Yeah, I think it was.
Look, he was cheap. He was cheap for when he went over to Dodgers right now, but he's not going to be anymore.
What I saw his predicted salary was going to be $3 to $5 million a year.
There's no way.
If you go over that, I mean, okay, so say like, you know, the Twitter feed that I saw was wrong. I don't even remember who it was at this point. But anyway, so say we give him $10 million a year.
Okay.
Give him 3 for 10. Why not? We can fit that in the budget. I don't see any reason why we can't.
I mean,
he was 1 year, 23.5
for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
damn,
he's basically Bregman money. So maybe not Teoscar. I mean, but you have, I mean, like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head some of the outfield free agents. Like you have, I know you have Ryan Verdugo.
What about Verdugo?
I just said Ryan Verdugo.
You have him.
Shiny belt away, man. We don't need him.
I mean, but hey, they're looking for another lefty bat. I mean, so Verdugo. Now, granted, I mean, like he'll be a little bit cheaper. I mean, but if you're looking at, I mean, it depends on what your goals are. If your goals are to keep Kyle Tucker, then you can get a guy like Verdugo on a 1-year deal, and that will not rush Jacob Melton to the majors, right? Unless he's just killing the ball in AAA, right? So, I mean, like you kind of have to like have all these scenarios worked out. Like I didn't think Teoscar was going to be 23 million, so that's on me.
I didn't think it either. That's on.
But I think the key in all of this as well is that, like, see, the Astros are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because it's like you want to maintain that high level, but you don't have the money to do it. So you would have to move Ryan Presley, right, in an already kind of beat up and depleted bullpen because you let Seth Martinez go. I mean, really, he was your only guy that was in the bullpen last year. I mean, so I would assume they're going to give Montero a chance in the bullpen this coming season. I don't think there's any way they leave him down in AAA, making what $12 million a year. So
or more.
Yeah. So
here's Verdugo, and it was Alex Verdugo because when I pulled up Ryan Verdugo, apparently that was not the guy.
Ryan Verdugo is super cheap, bro.
Yeah, it was like 175,000. What I saw on his thing, it was like dumb cheap.
Yeah,
nice.
All right, so Verdugo, yeah. Let's see. He signed a 1-year, 8.7.
Oh, bam! That's all day. So you bring him in, and I don't think he lit the world on fire for New York either. So you could probably get him maybe 9, put him in left field, right, and then you can get rid of Chaz McCormick. Essentially, that's going to save you like 3.5. So really, you're only getting Verdugo for like. I mean, you're going to make money off that deal. And then you do something like Polanco at third, which isn't going to cost you a lot, maybe like 3, maybe 4. And then that still gives you money to maybe you look at Goldschmidt. And I understand, we're so jaded because the last old guy that played first base totally failed us. But if you sign him on a 1-year, maybe $10 million deal for Goldie, I'm okay with that. Right.
Yeah. Well, with a 2nd-year option, like depending on how you're
I mean, then,
why not?
You know, so then you look at pitching wise. Okay, pitching, right? I've been campaigning for Justin Bieber. Yeah, Justin Bieber. Shane Bieber. There you go.
Not your favorite singer.
Not my favorite singer who I have a tattoo on my chest of. But then I realized he's basically Christian Javier. He's not coming back till like August either because he's had Tommy John. So what you could do with that is that you could give him a 2-year deal, backload it, with a crap ton of incentives, right? Because I mean, that's a guy who's just when he's healthy, that's a potential Cy Young Award winner right there. So there's that. And I'm just trying to think off the top of my head other starting pitchers that they can. I mean, because we're not going to be in play for Walker Buehler. Corbin Burns ain't going to be it. I'm trying to think of who else. All those top guys. I mean, like it'd be nice to get another top guy.
I think top guy starting pitching would be a luxury for us at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you got so many freaking holes to fill.
I mean, I think if you're going to do anything pitching wise, it's going to be probably a number 4 or number 5, and you're looking at, well,
maybe Eovaldi.
It's just tough because it's like if you trade Fromber, then you don't really have a number one unless you're really, really expecting Hunter Brown to take the next step and be what he was the last half of the
Yeah,
season.
but aren't you expecting that progression?
We expected that. We expected that last season.
Well,
right?
okay, and so in May and June, along with the rest of the people that suited up, they all were sucking.
Not
Right?
Fromber. I'm not Fromber. I mean, not Blanco. Blanco was not.
Well, okay, yes, except for Blanca. But the point is that yeah, he didn't dominate the whole season. Hunter Brown did, but when he got past that bullpen, when he came out and threw 5 scoreless against Detroit, from that moment on, he was the ace of the team. There's no in my mind.
I mean, no, I agree with you. I mean,
so I think the natural progression would be for him to be the number one, which makes it a little bit easier to, in my opinion, to move on from Fromber.
Yeah, but what happens if he? I mean, like, I get what you're saying, and what you're saying makes 100% sense, right? But it's nice to have that little bit of a cushion in Fromber. It'd be one thing if Javier was 100% healthy. If Javier's 100% healthy, I'm not even debating this conversation.
Yeah.
But it's just like, okay. But then it's like, yeah, so we hang on to Fromber as a comfort pillow before we hand the ace reins over to Hunter Brown. We've seen what Fromber's done in the playoffs. And people crap on him. But I mean, like, he gave up 3 runs. Now, granted, like you felt like you had to go get him because of all the other times in the playoffs that he's imploded. It just blows my mind because, man, in 2022, he was freaking nails. And then 2024 or 2023 happens, and then he gets touched up by Detroit this past offseason or the past playoffs.
He got away from his sports doctor.
I thought he went back to him.
Well, who knows, man? Maybe it was the dreads. Maybe it was the dreads. Maybe it was the hat not fitting.
Maybe that's what it was. But
well, don't forget he got rid of the dreads and then
brought them back
after that.
Well, he also went rogue too. So
he did go rogue.
He did a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's tough. I mean, because it's like you have to kind of rob Peter to pay Paul, right? So
that's the dilemma at its foundation, at its core. That's the problem, right? Like,
but I feel like if you have a position that is your strength, it is starting pitching, right? I mean, I think you go above and beyond to try to also trade Ryan Presley. I think
look, I completely agree, dude. Move on.
I think you're reaching out to maybe the Dodgers. You're reaching out to, we always say Baltimore, but yeah. man, how about this? And I don't think they would do it because could you imagine working out a deal for Tucker and Ryan Presley to Baltimore, and let's say brings you back something like, I don't think they would do it, but let's say if it brought you back Jackson Holiday and let's say Colby Mayo back from the Baltimore, and then maybe some other lower end prospects. I mean, that right there.
Baltimore's they got a ton of prospects they can get rid of. The one that I saw today, like that I was talking about right before we jumped on, though, was that the most reasonable one, because we have a hole obviously to fill at first base, and I know we were just talking about like Goldschmidt and a couple other guys, but at the same time, shipping him off to Tampa Bay for Yandy Diaz and maybe send one other prospect and then figure out the money from there. And that made a whole lot of sense because Yandy Diaz not only is a really good defensive first baseman, dude's got a bat. So if we can get both those together and keep him, because I think he's still got like 2 or 3 years left on his contract, that'd be an amazing deal if they can pull that off. But I don't see us not sending at least one more prospect, probably that's going to hurt a little bit in an already depleted system. And we're going to have to eat some of that money, I'm sure.
You're talking about trading Presley?
Yeah, and a prospect for Yandy.
Yeah, but is Presley going to okay a no trade clause to Tampa? I mean, Tampa just basically sold last year. Yeah, but Tampa sold last year. I mean, they traded
everybody.
I mean, I felt like if they had an extra
They've
day,
got an open air stadium now.
Yeah, they do. Right? I mean, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. Maybe next year they had a lot of injuries too from like their starting pitching. Maybe that's something he considers. There is no state tax in Florida, so I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, but like we would just have to tell him that Jacob Melton's off the table.
I think with the Presley thing, I mean, look, his value is as high as it's going to be at this moment, obviously, because we don't know how he's going to pitch, coming into 2025. And it was a trade piece already this past season. We talked about that till we were blue in the face. I think you move on from Presley. I think you do. I think you try to, at least. You try to move him to a spot where he's going to waive his no trade, and see what you can get back for him, whether it's prospects or big league ready player. I don't like the option of having to add prospects to any of our potential trades, but we're probably going to have to, depending on who we're going to move. I was kind of going back and forth on Twitter earlier, or X, whatever. And I like the moving on from Presley, but I don't like the prospects, just like I just said, because we already have a depleted farm system, and it's probably going to cost one of our, maybe not our top guy, but one of our mid-level guys, right? We have to rebuild our farm system. We just have to, because we have a terrible farm system. So it's going to be. I like the moving on from Presley. I do like that. If we can find a good home for him where he will waive us no trade and we get a good return back, I think I'm okay with that.
Well, it's going to be tough
again, man.
It's going to be tough. Go ahead, Bros.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, I mean,
that's all I was going to say.
I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, because it's not like, I mean, if this was him coming off of 2022, I would agree with you 110%.
Well, right.
I mean, now granted, his ERA wasn't terrible. It wasn't like it was 6 something. I think it was like, what, high threes, which we look at that as, man, this guy sucks.
It might as well have been 7 because we watched.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like that's how.
But
he
does have value. I mean, but you're not going to rebuild this not the bullpen. You're not going to rebuild this minor league system by trading away
an old
Dubon,
pitcher,
right? You're not going to get back into the top 10 minor league systems by trading Dubon or trading JP France or trading an injured Urquidy. Somebody asked about trading McCullers. McCullers has no trade value, none. I mean, like the only value he has is that whatever your local store is, he'll do commercials for him. That's about it. So
we can trade him to Kroger.
Yeah. I mean, like, so if he goes to Florida, that he can do Publix commercials. There you go. I mean, that's really about it.
Maybe you can open up another coffee shop there too. So
yeah, there you go. I mean, but like, it's going to be interesting because, as much as I want them to bring back Bregman, it's just we have so many holes on this roster, right? And it's just like, yeah, it'd be great to have Bregman. I go back to the question I asked everybody like a couple months ago. It's like having Bregman here. Now, granted, I mean, like nobody was expecting this offense to be as putrid as it was, but it's not like Bregman puts us over the top. It's not like we lost the World Series in Game 7 and we needed to. I mean, we had Bregman last season and we were bounced in the first round of the playoffs. We were swept. So it's like, it's keeping Bregman at the cost of putting McCormick back out there, Myers back out there, and Singleton at first base, and a bullpen that at points needed a Band-Aid and needed microscopic surgery on because it was so beat up. Is that worth the cost?
We need plus WAR.
I mean, but to me, like it's like, yes, I love Alex Bregman, right? But I feel like if he was to leave, that gives us a whole bunch of options to address holes throughout the roster instead of we put all of our money into Bregman. So now we're looking for a number 4 or 5 starting pitcher. And then that's it. That's all we make. And we signed Brad Keller.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like we keep Bregman. The city of Houston's happy. I'm happy. PK's happy. Browse is happy. But it's like, is this going to be like do we become the Brewers where we make the playoffs and then we're bounced in the first, maybe make it to the divisional round and then get bounced, right? I mean, if we're gonna retool, then tell us we're looking to retool. We're gonna move a couple guys. We are not tearing it down and rebuilding, But it's just you have to. I mean, basically do what the Mets did and be like, listen, we're looking to aim for 2025. And they traded a bunch of old guys. Now, granted, they had to eat a lot of the contract, which we may have to eat some on Presley to be able to really move them for a decent prospect back. So, I mean, I'm kind of torn because I'd love to see Bregman, I'd love to see him retire an Astro, but it's like, at what cost? Is this team going to be, like it, was this team just lucky this last year because Seattle and Texas faltered at the end of the season and basically handed them the division? What happens if Seattle goes out there and goes and gets, I don't know, like they've been linked to like corner infielders. I mean, so like any one of the guys that we're talking about, they go out there and get them, because that offense was fucking terrible last year. So let's say they go out and address those needs. Let's say the Rangers. I mean, I haven't really heard nothing about the Rangers.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I mean,
I'm
Seattle's
not scared of any of them, to be honest with you.
But really, that's the thing is that like had they not collapsed at the end of the season, I mean, the division this past season was handed to us on a platter. We did everything we could to give it up, and they said, "Cool story, take it back."
We're not ready.
Yeah, we're not ready. So, I mean, like I'm hoping that last year was just a freak of a bunch of injuries, all this other stuff, and they put it together. I mean, like I miss the days where it's mid-August and we're just like, we're just waiting for the rest of the season because we have a 14-game lead in the division. I mean, but it hasn't been like that last year. And the year before, like we won in 2023, we won we won the division on the last day.
Yeah, against the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, so it's like I kind of want to get to that next point and just surpass it.
Yeah,
back to the old days.
Let's say the one thing I will say though is that I've always made fun of the Angels in the past. It's like because you hear it on MLB Network especially, they're like, oh, the Angels they've ramped up, they've got Mike Trout and blah blah, and they've done this and they've done that, and I always just laugh at it because they're always going to fall down and just like look stupid, right? They're starting to kind of get past all those crappy contracts that they put out, and I know they still have Rendon on the books, but they're actually going out and spending money now. So I'm not going to say that these guys are going to gel together and do anything, but on paper right now, I'm looking at the Angels as more of a threat than definitely the A's. Now, as far as Seattle is concerned, obviously Seattle still got amazing starting pitching, but I'm not worried about the A's or the city to be named later A's, even though they went out and got Sevy and like you were saying, PK got Darno at catcher earlier in the off season. So I think that there is still a whole lot of hot stove going on that we've got to figure out. I know we've been just going through hypothetical after hypothetical. And like Chris, what you were saying, I'm ready to see something. I'm ready to see something get poked, ready for these winter meetings. I'm ready for it to be the old winter meetings where you had like all the agents in the room with the owners and the GMs, and then you had a whole bunch of players sitting out in that hotel lobby or in the bar just hoping that they were going to be signing a contract before they leave.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, like, it's been kind of boring. I mean, I'm like, I almost hope that Bregman signs somewhere else so it kicks the Astros in the ass and they start doing stuff.
Whoa.
I mean,
it's
like,
a hot take.
It is a hot take. I mean, but like,
speaking of that, I mean, y'all want to talk about about a little bit of the links that y'all seen about to the Astros, other players besides Bregman?
Yeah, I mean, I've of course, like the new darling that was put out was Christian Walker, which I always thought that was kind of their guy that they were heavy interested in since the offseason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I said, we talked about Polanco. I mean, I still think if you can go out and make a trade for Correa, put him at third base, find a way for Minnesota to eat $10 million in that. Yeah,
bring out Los back.
He said he'll play third base. You put him at third base, then you could start. Third base is covered. He's signed through 2032, so then you could do what you want with Tucker or Fromber.
That would be very interesting to bring his ass back, man. It really would.
And then, like, if anything was to happen with Pena, you just move him over to shortstop, and hopefully by then, either Whitcomb or DeZenzo has proved that they can stick in the big leagues. Stick them over at third.
That would be very interesting. I mean, it would be. You think he would get his number back?
Yeah, no one else is wearing number 1.
Well, he's number 4 now. No one's wearing number 1 on the
No, he's
Twins.
so all right. That's an easy thing. Pedro Leon, you're no longer number 4. It's going back to Craig, which I would assume. I'd be pissed if he came back to the Astros and he wears number 4. I'm gonna be pissed. I'm like, no, dude, go back to number 1,
number.
so I don't have to go buy
Springer's
somebody. I don't have to go buy your new jersey at number 4.
Yeah, let's get the band back together.
Yeah, I mean, so that's always a thing. I mean, but like, it's, I did read something that supposedly the Astros are in on Soto. I mean, but I doubt it.
Oh, is that your friend from Seattle also?
No. That was actually on Twitter. So,
There's no way.
They would have to be multiple moves for that to happen. Like, they would have to sign Soto, trade Tucker, and you'd have to trade Tucker for a third baseman because you also gave up on Bregman. Which, in that case, let's say you do trade Tucker to, like, I don't know, Baltimore and get somebody like Colby Mayo as to play third base. Are you going to be upset as an Astros fan? It's like you basically traded Bregman for Juan Soto. Well, you traded Bregman and Tucker for Juan Soto, but you got Soto for 10 years.
That's so freaking tough, though, man. Because like
I'm just saying,
it's like yeah, I take him, but then now you got a hole, and you still got a hole. I don't know. It's a generational talent. I mean, it's. Yeah. I don't know, man. That's a freaking tough one.
Yeah, so that'll give you something to stew on for the next week. I know I said we were going to play GM. I think we kind of did a little bit, but I know what I'm going to try to do over the next week is I'm going to try to put together. I'm actually going to do some homework and be prepared for an episode. And I'm going to.
So, are you saying that you're never prepared for an episode? Because I'm always prepared every single time.
Do I look like I'm ever prepared for an episode? No, I just wing it. That's all I ever did. No. I talk a big game. They're like, man, he really does his homework. Spoiler.
Hey, we never talked about Sasaki.
Who? Oh, Roki.
Sasaki
or Willie Adames. Thanks, Matt.
Oh, that was another one. Yeah, Willie Adames. Yeah.
We'll get that.
They're also interested in him as well. So
Cody Bellinger was linked.
Yeah.
Brought by Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like, as an Astros fan, are you okay with trading Bregman for Adames?
I don't know.
We'll get all in on it.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I'm gonna actually do my homework for next episode, and I'm actually gonna I'm not gonna be dumb and say we're gonna sign Soto and Pete Alonso and all this other stuff. I'm gonna actually try to do it for real, and I'm also gonna throw in a move that I think you already know what it's gonna be. So there's your teaser.
All right.
So, guys, anything else before PK takes us home?
No, I think that's it. I think we're going to be, if anything big breaks, starting with the winter meetings, we might pop in and see a quick little live. I think that's kind of the plan going forward. But, man, I want to thank Matt for jumping in, Julian for jumping in.
Appreciate it, Matt.
Thanks, guys, for checking in, Matt, with the questions. We're kind of getting out a little bit, but we got a lot of things to cover in the next few days, next few weeks. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So everyone that was listening and watching, thank you for listening. Thank you for people that tuned in. Don't forget, we're on Facebook at Juicebox Heroes. And of course, you can find us on YouTube at Juicebox Heroes Podcast as well. Be sure to subscribe there, follow us on Facebook, interact with us. Chris is always doing a great job of putting out polls and just stuff to keep y'all in tune with our podcast. We're on Twitter also. Juicebox Heroes on Twitter. Make sure you go follow us there. The same thing. But guys, thank y'all for jumping in. Thanks to the people watching. Thanks to people listening. I'm PK. That's Chris. That's Browse. And this is a Juicebox Heroes podcast. Hook 'em horns, baby. Go Horns on Saturday.